Yeah, I can finally start wearing the shirt now. This week sees the release of Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see it this weekend. I sort of have new responsibilities now, but it's definitely a movie I've come around to over the past few months. Initially, this movie lost me due to its weird visual aesthetic, the lack of traditional superhero costumes in any of the trailers or posters, and the fact that it seemed to focus primarily on Harley Quinn, a character normally not associated with the Birds of Prey. But over time, I did start to get the sense that this was a movie to keep an eye on. It is, after all, a female-driven action movie directed and written by two women, and you don't really see that in the action movie genre very often, if at all. So at the very least, it is going to be unique and different. Also, and perhaps more importantly, it was revealed that Ewan McGregor's character of Black Mask would in fact wear his black mask. Little things in life that make you happy. And besides, if nothing else, at least this movie won't be anywhere near as bad as the Birds of Prey TV show that came out at the turn of the millennium. Now, I've often brought up this show on this channel, talked about how much I didn't like it, and today, I think it's time we finally talked about why I think this is a bad show. The year is 2002. Smallville has been on the air for a little while now and has proven to be a hit with critics and fans alike for its new, fresh, unique take on the Superman mythology. Well, okay, this fan didn't like it, but that's not the point. The point is the WB had a hit on their hands and they were looking to capitalize on it by releasing a sister series, this time based on another DC superhero that they also happen to own. Now, the original idea they had for this show was to do something similar to Smallville. Do a show about a young Bruce Wayne traveling the world, learning different skills and abilities that he would eventually use when he becomes Batman as an adult. They didn't go down this route, but instead, they took a different path in order to bring Gotham City and its unique characters to the small screen. Enter Birds of Prey. Set in the city of New Gotham, the show takes place several years after Batman mysteriously disappears and follows Oracle, Huntress, and a young Black Canary as they continue the Caped Crusaders' war on crime. Okay, so that's really just the one-sentence logline for this show. To truly understand what we're working with here, I kind of have to explain the in-universe backstory, especially for the main characters, which incidentally is also the first few minutes of the pilot episode. It makes everything nice and easy for you. In this universe, Batman and Catwoman have a baby girl. Hey, just like me! This child is born with metahuman abilities because Catwoman also happens to have metahuman abilities in this universe for some reason. The girl was raised by her mother until an assassin hired by the Joker kills her. This causes Batman to flee Gotham, leaving the daughter orphaned but taken in by Barbara Gordon. Eventually, she would grow up to become Helena Wayne, this universe's Huntress. Now, the Miss Gordon of this show did moonlight as Batgirl at one point, but much like her comic book counterpart, was shot and paralyzed by the Joker. This would eventually lead her to become the informant broker we all know as Oracle. Also, I think Oracle is Barbara Gordon's best persona, but don't tell anybody I said that. And then there's Dinah Redmond, the daughter of Black Canary Carol Lance. Dinah is a telepath with telekinetic abilities who may also have the hypersonic scream like her character does in the comics, but it's never actually shown on screen. Also, Alfred's on the show. Good old Alfred. So you can tell from this backstory that the show takes quite the departure from the Birds of Prey comics, specifically the very popular Gail Simone Birds of Prey comics that were being published at the time. With the exception of Black Canary, none of the Birds of Prey had any metahuman or otherwise supernatural abilities. Hell, none of the allies of Batman are known for anything like that. If anything, partners of Batman are known for being quick-witted and using their natural human skills in order to fight crime. And even Black Canary, who does have superpowers, is known to be a great fighter. She knows how to use her fists very well and really only busts out the Canary Cry when absolutely necessary. Not that it really matters with this show because one, Dinah Redmond is never called Black Canary, and two, the character doesn't really do anything. At most, she suffers from weird dreams with vague messages in them. Really, Birds of Prey is more of the Huntress and Oracle show. Now, on that front, Dina Myers is actually a pretty good Oracle. With the material she's given, she puts in a good performance and definitely feels like the Barbara Gordon that we all know. But while Ashley Scott isn't bad as this version of Huntress, it's just not a version that I could get into. It was just very weird seeing the character portrayed this way. She doesn't feel like a character driven by revenge or rage like she is in the comics. She feels more like a high school girl trying to be a superhero because her dad was. And she's only good at it because of her powers and Oracle's training, not because she's naturally good at it. Also, this was her costume. Now, yes, this was the early 2000s and the Matrix / first X-Men look was in, you know, trench coats and black leather, but this looks like something you could wear to the mall and nobody would bat an eye. This doesn't look like a crime fighter getup.
Lovely outfit.
Thank you. Going dancing later.
Now that's bad enough on its own, but it's especially bad when you consider that Dina Myers does wear the Batgirl costume in flashbacks, and it doesn't look that bad. Sure, it looks like it came from the Schumacher Batman films, but at least it's something, and it's high quality at that. And Huntress's costume actually does a lot to reinforce the fact that this was not a very expensive show. Sure, neither was Smallville, but at least Smallville had a rural farm town setting to help mask its financial shortcoming. Here, however, the lower budget and cheap look of the show overall just makes everything look like a pale imitation of the 90s Batman films. Everything looks so much more artificial than it actually is. Perhaps worst of all, the actual episodes of the show just weren't very interesting. It felt very Monster of the Week with the birds fighting a new rando with metahuman abilities. It didn't help that the subplots and ongoing story arcs of the show felt more in line with a high school drama than they did with a traditional superhero show. Not saying that high school drama is bad, it's just that that works better when the characters are actually in high school and it takes place in a high school, like Smallville did. Doesn't work when most of your characters are grown-ass adults. Honestly, the show as a whole just felt like it was more interested in showing characters with cool superpowers than it was in showing actual human beings. Maybe that's why they added superpowers to Huntress and Catwoman, to try and make them more interesting, other than the fact that they were interesting on their own beforehand. That and the fact that there's always this vague reminder that the show does take place in the Batman universe, but Batman never shows up. Honestly, the most interesting thing about the show was its main reoccurring villain, who happened to be Harley Quinn, in this version played by Ferris Bueller's girlfriend, Mia Sara. In this show, Harley Quinn acts as Huntress's psychiatrist, although neither realize who the other is at first. Throughout the season, Harley analyzes Huntress while also plotting her revenge against Batman's allies for Joker's incarceration. It's pretty interesting stuff, and there's a fun tension that plays out whenever the two are on screen. It's just unfortunate this idea was wasted on a TV show that's so pedestrian. Birds of Prey really is a bad early 2000s sci-fi action show that wasn't really very put together back then, and it's held up terribly when watched today, especially with regards to the music. It just belongs in that period and only that period. Today, Birds of Prey is mostly remembered for being the show that featured Harley Quinn's live-action debut and for having some vague connection to the Batman mythology. But if you think about it, that vague connection might have ultimately been the show's undoing. Because unlike, say, Gotham, Batman does exist in this universe and he's fully formed. So you would be forgiven for thinking that he would show up at one point, but he just never does. Outside of Oracle, Alfred, and Harley Quinn, there's no real evidence to suggest that this is connected to Batman in any way. Now sure, Batman, Catwoman, and Joker do show up in the intro to the pilot, but that's about it. Otherwise, you're just left with this vague sense that Batman should be here, but isn't. So you spend weeks watching the show hoping that this feeling pays off, but it never does. With Gotham and Smallville, you knew that Batman, Superman, and their greater mythologies were coming. You knew that they were going to be the payoff for years of watching these respective shows. With Birds of Prey though, we had to deal with a whole bunch of substitute teachers hoping that they would fill the void left behind by Batman. It's really sort of like the Fireworks Factory situation shown in its most perfect form.
When are they gonna get to the Fireworks Factory?
Now, there were some cool fan servicey moments on the show. Oracle does mention all of the Robins by name. Villains like Clayface and Lady Shiva show up a couple times. Hell, Mark Hamill provided the voice of the Joker in the pilot. But other than that, there really wasn't anything memorable about the Birds of Prey TV show. It was a one-season experiment that really didn't take off the way it probably could have or should have. We would of course get good Birds of Prey content on TV in the future. There was that episode of Justice League Unlimited that featured the Birds of Prey. There was an episode of Batman Brave and the Bold that featured the Birds of Prey. The Arrow universe has done great stuff with them. Hell, the upcoming movie looks to be a more faithful adaptation of the characters despite its many changes. But the Birds of Prey TV show remains a weird oddity in the canon of DC television. Not many people know that this show existed, but the ones that do remember it don't really seem to remember it very fondly. Unless, of course, you do remember it fondly, in which case let me know down below or anywhere on the internet why you liked Birds of Prey so much, or why you didn't like it. You never know with weird-ass old comic book shows like this one. Now, of course, I should mention that Ashley Scott did get to reprise her role of Huntress in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover that happened on the CW not too long ago, so somebody out there must remember this show existed. But I guarantee when that scene came up, a lot of people were watching it at home and just went, huh? Now, if you do want to check out this show for yourself, it is streaming in its entirety on DC Universe, and I also have an Amazon link in the description to the show on DVD. It's not very expensive, so if you feel like owning Birds of Prey physically, I got a link for you. And hell, while you're down there, I'll have some Amazon links to some Birds of Prey comics that I think you'll enjoy more than this show. At least you'll get to see what the team is supposed to be like. And of course, don't forget that we have new videos every Tuesday and Wednesday, with Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern being Wolf Den Live. So subscribe to see all of that, like this video, and share it with a friend who was really into Birds of Prey and maybe didn't know that this show existed. Or maybe they have a fondness for weird turn of the millennium sci-fi shows, like Dark Angel. I didn't like that show either. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next time.
Wow.